So James Gunn has just announced that he's going to be writing and possibly directing a Superman film. This is my pitch for what that film could be. Hi Pinkies! Before you go into this, you should know 3 things. 1. This is not James Gunn's Superman. This is my attempt at writing something that could be a Superman film. Go into it knowing that this is not my prediction. This is not my hope for his movie. I don't want him to do anything like what I did here. Number 2, Kit Connor is the actor that I had in my head when I was writing the script. So imagine it with him as Superman. He's younger, his mannerisms, that's the kind of Superman that I've portrayed in this script. 3, so this isn't a James Gunn script, but I tried to put some of his cringe humor into it, and if one of those happens in the movie, it'll be indicated with the Seinfeld laugh track. That's all I gotta say. I hope you enjoy my pitch for Superman. We hear voices. Jor-El, Jonathan Kent, Lara L., Martha Kent, each of them speaking inspirational words about Clark's future. Mr. Kent. Clark quickly picks up his head, realizing he's fallen asleep in class. Yes, Professor Jones. We hear other students laughing as Clark smiles sheepishly. After class, Professor Jones and Clark talk about how he's been distant lately. Clark tells Jones he's been busy at the Daily Planet internship. We cut to a bustling newspaper company with reporters and writers clattering away at keyboards. The camera dollies around as we see desk after desk, reporter after reporter, some faces familiar, others not. Finally, we land on the most cluttered desk of all, Clark Kent's. Clark is still a newbie, so he's doing busy work pawned off to him by the professionals, since he still hasn't had his major scoop yet. I don't really know how reporting works, okay? Here we meet Jimmy Olsen, one of Clark's only friends at the Daily Planet. We have a montage of them splitting up the busy work and high-fiving each time they complete a document. This goes on into the night until they can barely muster the energy to lift an arm, let alone high-five. Clark heads to his apartment around 2 a.m., and we get to see his very small but homely apartment. He stacks papers from work on an already tall stack, then puts away his clothes. In his closet, we see a blue suit. He gazes at the suit for a bit. We hear the musical cues for Smallville. Then he resigns to bed. The next morning, Clark shows up to class early to catch up on what he missed, and he realizes he seems to be interrupting a meeting between Professor Rudy and an unknown person. Clark listens in, but all we hear is that they don't agree on something. Clark walks into class and he studies with Professor Rudy, who says it was nothing. Professor Rudy gives him tips on investigative journalism. Rudy reminisces and wishes he was still young and in the game. After this, the Daily Planet sequence follows as usual. Jimmy and Clark work until 2 a.m., but this time, Clark hears arguing on his way home. He follows his super hearing to his journalism class, where he finds Professor Rudy writhing on the floor in pain. He's been given some kind of drug that makes his veins purple. Clark runs in and flies him to the hospital, thinking Rudy won't realize who he is. Clark watches as doctors work on Rudy. As his screams grow louder, we fade to the next day. Clark's class has a substitute. Obviously, Clark can't focus.
And the first partners that get it right are gonna win. Oh, the golden onion.
At the Daily Planet, Clark tells Jimmy, "A friend of mine is in the ER. Could you handle my work for today?" Jimmy sarcastically disagrees and then tells Clark, "Of course I will." Clark thanks Jimmy, stands up, and starts walking to the door. He sees a woman walking in just as he's leaving. All the sound escapes the room except the sound of her heartbeat. Clark trips face flat, sliding into the elevator, whacking against the wall, and then looking up at the bellboy. "Ground floor, please." Clark visits Rudy in the hospital. He seems to be turning more purple. They talk for a bit, and then Clark goes home. As he's walking, he sheds one tear and flies to Smallville to hug his mom. Back at the hospital, Rudy goes full Parasite. His skin bleeds and tears into purple and white. His eyes glaze over with a dark hue, as each doctor just becomes another hit of energy. He massacres the entire hospital. The next morning, Clark skips class and runs straight to the hospital. It's barricaded with tape and police officers. Red Tornado descends from the sky, and they all watch as he flies in and is destroyed by Parasite. His powers are absorbed. Clark realizes this isn't a fight he can win by sneaking around. He wears his makeshift suit and battles Parasite. With each punch, Parasite becomes stronger and stronger. Superman stops and flies above the hospital to think, "If he has my powers, maybe." Parasite hisses at Superman and flies up to meet him. Parasite's eyes go red, and he chases Superman back to Smallville using laser vision, flight, Punches and frost breath. Finally, at the Kent farm, Superman declares to Parasite, "I have a source of power for you, even stronger than me. Right here." Superman points to the barn. Parasite sees the heat emanating from the barn and runs to it. He inspects around, finding a red-hot box of pure energy. He opens the box. We hear screaming from the outside of the barn. Parasite bursts out of the barn, his purple skin now covered in holes. We see him crumble at Superman's feet. As the steaming pile of purple returns to a human shape, Martha Kent comes out. "You didn't even tell me you were in town." Superman sighs. "Ma." We then see Parasite and a prison of powered criminals being served as food through a special prison cell. We see snow outside the prison, then snow on the Daily Planet, and Metropolis University. Back in Smallville, Clark and Martha sit at a Christmas tree. Martha asks Clark, "Why have you been so distant? It's like you're drifting through space." Clark looks down and back up at Martha with a tear in his eye. "It's been hard, without Dad. It's hard to even be in Smallville without him." Martha hugs Clark and says, "I know. I miss him too. But we have each other, don't we?" The two hug for a bit, and Martha says, "Now can I open my presents or what? I want to see what newfangled gadgets you got me from Metropolis." Clark laughs. "Oh wait," Martha says, "I do have one more surprise." Lana Lang, Pete Ross, and Chloe Sullivan walk in. Clark is over the moon. "You guys, I missed you so much." They all hug and Chloe says, "I knew you wouldn't survive without us, Clark." We see a montage of them all opening presents. Afterwards, Martha gives him one present. "This is from Dad." Clark opens it to reveal a new supersuit. If for some odd reason you like the way that I write, you'll be excited to hear that I'm working on a movie. It's called Donuts If I Do, and it's gonna hopefully come out this February 23rd. I'm working really hard editing and reshooting scenes that I need to. It's getting a little crazy, especially since I'm sick. I've been pretty tired lately. I hope it'll come out on February 23rd, but if not, I'll make an announcement about it and we'll do something for it, We'll get it figured out, It'll come out and it'll be worth the time. If it freaking, you don't control me. It'll come out when I want it to come out, okay?